the Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network presents Worldview Media Podcast, where Gordon and Joyce Runyon view popular media through the lens of the biblical five-point covenant model to help believers appreciate and apply principles of exciting narrative and engaging storytelling.
Hey, what's up and stuff? This is the Worldview Media Podcast, winner of the prestigious Potty Award.
Oh boy. Amen. We hung that up in our bathroom.
That's a horrible place for the Potty Award. All right.
Do you want to try it one more time?
No, this is top shelf right here.
Okay. And we're live. No takebacks.
This is top shelf. This is the Top Shelf Media Podcast.
This is what got us the Potty Award.
We are broadcasting live from the immigration checkpoint between the land of the living and the land of the dead.
What?
Whoa.
It feels weird here. It smells kind of different.
Like death.
Like death
No.
warmed over.
I thought
I was going to say grape suckers.
It smells grape.
This is the Worldview Media Podcast. My name is Gordon Runyon, and with me is the full Worldview Media Podcast team of investigators.
The podcast
cast.
Podcast.
Were we supposed to investigate?
Cast squared.
Yeah, so at my 2 o'clock
Would it be cubed?
is
There you
the...
go. No, it's 3.
Y'all talking math?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're recording.
And my 2 o'clock is the wife of my youth, Miss Joyce. Happy to have you with us, ma'am.
I'm sure you are.
Savage.
At my 4 o'clock is Reagan Runyon.
I'd say I'm more at 5 o'clock, but okay.
All right.
Hello.
It depends on if he's 12 or not.
He's 6.
I'm looking at 12.
Okay. Then yeah, that would be...
And then at my 7 is Carmen Runyon,
Can be at 6.
Hola. Yeah.
the recently crowned director of our local Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, yeah.
Carmen Runyon.
I got a full sentence as a title now, so
Right.
I'm official.
Hoo-hoo. Can't wait for them kickbacks to start rolling in.
I thought you were going to say, I can't wait for them to realize they've made a horrible mistake.
If they haven't realized it with me, they won't realize it with you. And at my 13 o'clock is
Whoa.
Jordan Runyon.
I would contest that.
13.
I'm
Clearly on this side of the 12. Oh, well.
We're using military time.
Still wrong. But that's still...
That's still wrong.
Now they have no idea where I am in relation to you.
Oh, that sucks.
Oh, well.
Jordan is on the left on your radio dial.
Stop.
And we are here to talk about the fantabulous waste of time that is Coco.
Hooray.
Coco.
Oh, that's cute.
Who made this? Walt Disney?
Disney, Pixar.
Disney Pixar. Who's responsible for this fiasco?
I liked it.
I called it.
All right, I owe you $5.
Called it. I said Carmen was going to be the one defender.
I will.
All right.
Too bad
boy.
this is only audio.
That was insane.
That was a straight up Hostels mustache.
Somebody's wearing braids.
Specifically to have this discussion. Have my argument mustache on.
I don't want to sit next to you.
I would argue that point, but my mustache fell apart, so.
We ain't never gonna.
Alright, back to Coco.
Yeah, we're talking about Coco.
Right, we're talking about Coco, and in this movie, a bunch of crap happens. I don't even know what to say.
Not a bunch.
There's this kid, what's his name?
Miguel.
Miguel.
Oh, there you go. That's his name.
He lives in Mexico. He's surrounded by nothing but paganism, and he he somehow manages to journey to the land of the dead on the Day of the Dead.
Because he was stealing something from the dead.
Because he was stealing something from the dead.
I'm not
And
sure that
now
made
he's
a
in
bunch of
trouble
sense. Didn't make any
because
sense.
if he doesn't get back before sunrise, then he has to stay there forever.
As a skeleton man.
Or
He dies.
until everybody forgets him.
No, because
Right.
they would probably have a picture.
Yeah, they'd have the picture of him.
Eventually he'll be forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like everyone else.
And so
That's sad.
I know.
that's kind of the plot. He's searching for the man that he believes is his in the land of the
His
dead. He's searching for a man
great-grand.
he believes is his ancestor, who's a great musician, and Miguel wants to be a musician too. And
Well,
he's
they
hoping
make
that
shoes.
Yeah. Well, see, and that's the thing too, is that his you're missing the point of why he's looking for the great great grandfather. Is that in his history that his great grandpa left his family and left the mom and the daughter. And
Great, right.
great, yeah. So left his family and then went to become this famous musician and everything. Never came back. So the mom, the great grandma, great great whatever.
The originator.
The originator bans music because it reminds her of this husband that's left her and her daughter and stuff.
It's so intense.
And so then it's pretty extreme. But so they ban music in the whole family, and then we have Miguel who wants to be a musician. So he has to decide if he wants to be a musician over his family, because they're not giving him an option.
It's not allowed.
Yeah.
So he gets to the land of the dead and he meets up with several of his dead ancestors, and they, to a person, all hate music. And the only way they'll give him a blessing so he can return is if he agrees never to
Pursue.
do any
Being a
musical
musician.
anything again.
Yeah.
And so he's convinced that he needs to find his great 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 grandfather who was a musician and have him send him back with his blessing. And there's
Crazy people he meets along the way.
Yeah, well, that's true. And the rules of the land of the dead are that on the one day of the year, the Day of the Dead in Mexico, somebody want to say it in Spanish?
Dia de los Muertos.
Hey,
I was not about to put myself in that situation.
for
Would've been
being
embarrassing.
half white, that sounded all Spanish.
Well, that was my Spanish half.
Right.
That's why you have a mustache, bro.
Hey now.
What are you saying about your mother?
I'm just saying. Magnificent Mexican mustaches, I mean.
Hey now.
Mexican.
All right, so the rules of the land of the dead is that one day out of the year, the dead can cross back over into the land of the living and kind of visit with the family and stuff. That's if their photograph has been placed in the family shrine.
Yeah.
If it's not there, they can't go. They get stopped at the border patrol
Yeah.
station. And then the other rule is that once you get forgotten, meaning that nobody still tells stories about you or knows stories about you or anything, then you just dissolve into nothing and go away forever.
Yeah.
You're just gone.
Yeah. And the caveat with that is that you have to learn those memories from Somebody.
Who knew or
who knew you was alive.
you can't read it in a book. It
Yeah.
has to be passed down from person to person.
Makes it even tougher.
Yeah. And so, spoiler alert.
Everyone
Turns out
dies.
that the great 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 grandfather that was the musician turns out not to be his ancestor at all. This musician guy turns out to be a murderer,
Monster.
a monster of a man, and the guy that he killed is actually the ancestor of Miguel,
Yeah.
who
Well,
is also a magician.
musician. A musician. Well, and then his fake great great grandpa is like the best musician in
He's like Mexican Elvis,
Yeah.
basically.
Right.
based off of
Okay, so let's talk about why this movie was so terrible. Anybody have any ideas?
Oh, I think you have some.
It was horrible. It was so boring. It was so predictable. It was so... Well, I don't know. I fell asleep through most of it, but
See, so how can you even give an
I woke up and I didn't miss anything.
That's what you usually think, though.
Yeah.
No, I know when I've lost the plot, but that didn't happen here. And I just felt like the whole thing was just promoting the most rank sort of paganism and ignoring the influence of Christianity in Mexico, even as flawed as it is and all that. And just kind of acting like that's never happened. And like I say, just the promotion of paganism and the stupid story. And I just thought that was all bad.
Carmen feels differently? Question mark?
No, I did feel like I enjoyed some of the artwork. I thought the Land of the Dead was beautiful. And it was extremely colorful and just looked like a fun place to be.
Sure.
And it was a lot more fun than the movie.
So, is this... What is it you want to talk about here? Because it seems like you're...
I want to talk about what you felt about the movie overall. This is the overall segment.
I didn't really like it.
You were a hater to start.
Do you have anything more to say? Why did you not like it?
I just thought, like, it was kind of predictable, like you said. I felt like Carmen's gonna be like, no, you're totally wrong. But I just felt like I've seen movies that are similar, and it wasn't like a really exciting story, I didn't think. And I felt like, I don't know, some of the artwork was nice, but I felt like the animation was...
Pretty simple.
Yeah. And I didn't really love the characters. Any of them.
Yeah.
You had no connection.
No connection. No. I just sat there and watched it, like,
We have the podcast on this.
Yeah.
So.
Let me pick up one or two details that I need to remember.
All right, Jordan, what was your thought?
I didn't really. I don't need to see it again. I don't know. It was kind of boring most of the time. I thought that the music was really not all that great for being the big deal that it was. Like I can't even remember the tune to any of the songs. Any of them.
Any of them.
Any of them. I can't.
Can you?
But you can remember it's your birthday.
That was catchy.
That was catchy, and that was on,
You don't remember
on screen
me?
for like 2 seconds. But anyways, yeah, I don't know. I guess I just don't relate. And I heard a lot of people talking about, how great it was and stuff. And I was like hoping that it would be good, but I didn't really think it was very good.
It's probably not a movie I'm going to get and have.
Probably.
Hey, she got
You
her
better
opinion.
not get this movie.
Just for that, I'm going to get this movie.
This is a movie I have to have now.
But I think Disney is trying to do things that aren't just mainline American type of stuff. And unfortunately, I think people are doing this, that this is stuff that still kind of happens. It may not be as prevalent, but I think just maybe some of our Catholic friends do things like this. They pray to Mary, and I'm just like, what? Why would you do that? And so I think this probably still kind of happens at some level in that culture. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's right, but I can see
What
that
did
it's...
you like about it?
The animation was fun. I thought the colors and all of that was nice. The characters were probably a little too caricatures for me than not really being developed. But then they're not really what the movie is focusing on. It's focusing on the little boy and the singing and the music and then of course once you get into the dead place, he's just people that he meets there are just kind of people that he sees along the way. So there's not really a lot of other character development.
Yeah.
But the there was the twist with it, who the actual relative of his was.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of good. And I think there was some resolutions that were made that were positive.
Oh, you know another thing that I just remembered? I didn't really feel like there was a lot of tension throughout most of the movie because he's supposed
Maybe
to like
that's why
make
it's
it back through. He's supposed to make it back before dawn, and he's got to help this guy get his picture on something so that he can go back before dawn. But I never felt like there was a time crunch at any point.
Where you were like nervous, or
where I was like,
Oh no.
The countdown never really started.
It was
and the
like
sun was coming up.
they were doing all this stuff, and nobody cared about how long it was taking.
Like, it was fake tension.
Yeah.
But you knew that it was going to be okay.
Well, not even just that, but like,
but you
nobody
didn't know.
even ever referenced. Oh no! You look, you're doing all your bones are showing now. Like nobody cared. Like it was never even really an issue. Like they said, oh, it has to be done by this point, but then we never really hear about that again until.
So you would have liked it if they kept saying, it's 10 o'clock, or now it's midnight.
I'd like to know. I'd like to, because there's no tension if nobody says anything about like. Well, wait, what time is it actually now? What time did he get here? How long do we actually have? Nobody says. You don't know. I don't know.
All right, Carmen, you have 1 minute to convince us this isn't a pile of crap.
All right. I think a lot of the issues that, like, you run to Coco, I think you guys are accurate in that, it's very pagan. The basis of it is not a good basis. The art is really pretty and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the issues with not relating and stuff to the movie is partially cultural because I follow some different people who do like concept art for the movie and everything. And so Disney's really good about going in and finding the cultural stuff. Mm-hmm. So, Coco's actually the #1 animated movie in Mexico, like ever of all time. Yeah. This movie just destroyed in Mexico. And a huge part of that is because it references a lot of Mexican culture. I don't know these people, but in the backgrounds of the different scenes, like in the movie with Ernesto's party, that they have the actual like most famous singers in Mexico, and like all these different people are referenced. And that's stuff I don't know.
Yeah. And we wouldn't catch because that's not
catch.
our culture. And that was a point that I had said too, that Disney is trying to be a little bit more global in how they're presenting their products, and it's not just all mainstream America. And
the music, I thought the music was good. It's not the type of music I listen to, but I'm like, okay, you know what, this is a different culture of music, this is something to get used to. And I think the themes that they tried to hit on was family and the importance of family and the importance,
for the second half.
Yeah, second half, and the relationships you have with your family, that's kind of the big push with this movie, which I think they did, but I think it kind of got sacrificed a little bit. And like you guys said, with the depth of the characters and stuff, that you just see a family and you see parts, but they're all playing parts of a family. Yeah. And that does hurt the storyline some, but I mean, I liked the colors. I thought it was a really pretty movie. I at least was engaged during it, but
I agree with the art. Like I said, I did think that one place where the storytelling fell apart is Miguel makes it back and he gets to his family, and we don't see him do anything in terms of explaining where he's been and what he's learned. But suddenly in the next scene, his whole family that has been banning music for generations without any explanation, everybody, even the most staunch of the ones that enforce that rule, now they're all happy to have music around and stuff like that. I thought that was kind of...
Is that the cutscene at the very end where he's singing in the...
When he goes in to see Coco.
Well, when he goes in to see Coco. Well, I think...
They're still not wanting him to sing.
Yeah.
But they see the response of the grandma to the music. And that's when I think they just say, okay, because she hasn't been responsive.
Yeah.
And she's just been sitting in a chair.
For how long?
Yeah. And so they see that
but that
change
explains
in
it?
No. But that's when they just say, okay, play this song because this obviously means something to her, because her countenance is changing and she's
She's
looking
actually
like
able to
she's
talk.
a part of this world now instead of just staring off
Yeah.
into nowhere. And so I think that's why they're like, okay, we'll let this happen. I don't think they would do that if the Coco was,
Doesn't have
you know,
response.
if she hadn't been in that state. I don't think
Yeah.
that would have been acceptable. They wouldn't have allowed it. And they didn't want that to, they were against it, but he started doing it anyway. And then
Yeah.
there was the response there.
Well, and then she didn't recognize her daughter, the big
Yeah.
music lady and stuff like that. Didn't recognize her through the whole part of the movie where we saw them together. And then he sings a song with her, and she's able to like speak in full sentences, and she recognizes her daughter, and you know, what's wrong? You look so sad. Whereas before, she's not even
Responsive.
Doesn't know who she
Yeah.
is.
who's there and what's going on, and
So,
you know.
but these are things to talk about in a second.
Yes.
Portion.
Are they? All right.
Well, maybe not. Maybe we're done and we just say nobody watch Coco ever again.
That's my vote.
Podcast.
All right. We're going to take a break and come back with more worldview thematic type issues. See ya.
The Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network brings to you a complete lineup of podcasts where you will hear practical and tactical theology. Our desire is not simply that you consume our shows, but that you also live out your faith in every area of life. We can talk all day long about these things, but if we fail to put them into practice, then we fail as ambassadors of Jesus Christ our King. Subscribe now to your favorite Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network shows. Or you can subscribe to the Reconstructionist Radio Master Feed, where all of the content we produce, including the audiobooks and audio articles, will pop up as soon as they are available. And don't forget to visit ReconstructionistRadio.com to volunteer as a narrator or to partner with this ministry financially. May the Holy Spirit stir you into action for Christ and His kingdom.
Are you interested in Christian education? Would you like to learn how to be a Christian teacher or how to run your very own Christian school with success? The GCS Apprenticeship Program can help. Learn more on our website at gcsapprenticeship.com.
We're back in the land of the living just before sunrise. The Worldview Media Podcast.
Oh, wow. It's almost an all-nighter.
How would we know?
That was close.
Nobody's paying attention to the time.
All right, so we've talked in general what we liked and what we didn't like, and now it's time for us to talk more in terms of worldview and themes and what sorts of things are being preached to us in the movie Coco. Jordan? Jordan had something for us. Go ahead.
Well, I think the thing that we had talked about earlier while we were just sort of talking before we were like podcasting about it.
In our practice run.
Well, no, just casual talking.
That's what we do.
Dress
We
rehearsal.
talk about stuff all the time. So
Well,
we do.
just the so this guy that the kid thinks this is great
his ancestor.
that like this guy turns out to be like this terrible guy and a murderer and all this stuff, but he's still like doing good. Like there's no justice in the afterlife at all.
He's a celebrity. He's a murderer and a thief and
Liar.
a liar, and he's just false on every front, and he's a big celebrity in the land of the dead. Everybody loves him, and he's as famous there as he was ever in life.
Yeah.
He's got the biggest palace, and
Yeah, and everybody wants to hang out, and he's
Right.
still getting all this stuff from like everybody who's like alive and putting up shrines for him and stuff.
So
all
his
his fans.
future in the land of the dead is secure because he's got so many people who remember him and tell the stories.
Yeah,
He's never going to leave. He's fine.
yeah. So like, that ain't cool.
Right, so you've got an afterlife there where the rewards and punishments are completely divorced from any actual moral activity in life. And now your status in the next world is not based on ethical judicial concerns, but they're based on how much do people
Popularity.
like you.
Yeah.
But the thing with that too is that he was found out by the people there, so that's going to affect how they then want to interact with this person, or if they're going to do that.
Well, and then at the end of the movie, he's got the "forget you" on him.
Yeah, and I think too with the little boy coming back and saying, because then that's when the grandma says, "Oh, I got all this stuff from my dad, and here's all the lyrics and the songs and everything that he wrote me." So it's kind of disproving that this idol.
So you're saying his fame in the land of the living stands to be diminished.
Yeah,
and
I
that
think
will
so.
affect his afterlife.
Well, yeah, because the whole thing is that you have to put things out for the dead so that they are nourished,
But wouldn't that
I guess? I don't know.
Wouldn't that continue, seeing as how none of the people still alive, knows that he's, a bad dude?
Well, but at the end, there was a reporter there was all sorts of
They were
things
doing a
going
tour.
on. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
but
I mean,
Jordan had said even before we started doing this that, Michael Jackson, he...
well, he's still relatively within this generation. And as things go on and they go forward, that's not to say he's going to be remembered the same.
Well, but people are going to completely forget about him one day.
No, but the way that you're remembered is going to
It's
change.
like with Elvis, he's still somebody everybody knows about, but it's not like when he was alive. It's not like immediately after he died. Things shift and change, and
even
music
so,
continues and goes on.
If we're in this paradigm with this is the way that the afterlife works, even so, Elvis is still fine.
Well, he probably didn't kill anybody.
Yeah.
Well, but he's still fine. He's in no danger of fading away.
If you want to get into that culturally, with the whole sexual abuse and sexism in Hollywood and stuff like that, there are people that won't go and watch movies anymore because of different names are attached to things, like the Weinstein guy, whatever his name is. They had his company had a movie come out directly after that scandal, and it made nothing. It was out in theaters for maybe a week or two, and it made nothing. It was in the thousands, and it was a national release. And there's websites that are dedicated to, you can put in the name of the movie and it'll pull up whether or not there's somebody involved with the scandal, and then people won't go and see it, So.
Well, but
you still know who that person is.
Yeah, I think that still doesn't change the fact that your afterlife is completely contingent on what people think about you.
Well, I'm just saying, in the movie, it appears that because of all this
there's a chance it may go
information
worse
coming
for
up,
him.
and because of what happened in the world of the dead people, that they realized that this guy that they had admired and thought so much of was not the real person that they saw.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't look like he just continues on in the same way that he had before.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Even if the living people still remember this guy, or they're like, oh, this is just a scandal or whatever, it's a scam. He's caught on video confessing to murdering this dude and stealing
but
his
he's
songs
already dead.
in front of all of the other people.
Those were the people that had elevated him there as well. They kept him elevated because here's this guy. He does the music. He does all this stuff. He has the best house. I don't think that remains the same.
Yeah, but at least the dead people will treat him poorly.
Well, he won't be a star anymore.
But yeah, there's an issue with that.
Yeah, there's a big issue. Basically, what it means is that
better get your revenge while they're still alive.
Right, and in this world, if this was the actual world, then there's really no consequences for doing evil as long as the right people don't know about it or something like that.
And a lot of people live their lives exactly like that.
Yeah, and that may be attractive.
World,
that may be attractive to people. I did think it was interesting. I don't know who was taking a shot at who, but I did think it was interesting that in the place where the land of the dead becomes the road to the land of the living, that the Mexican dead people have to go through basically an immigration checkpoint to head to the land of the living. Thought that was kind of funny. I'm not sure who they're, if that was a political shot or what was
I don't
going
know.
on
Well,
there.
it reminded me of like being in line to like for Disneyland or something is what I was most reminded of. That you have to go in the line and you have to have your pass and then okay, have a good time, goodbye. And then you're back. Well, welcome back.
You had to declare things when you were returning. It was more like a customs
TSA.
stop.
I was thinking, well, here's your passport. Thank you. Boarding pass. All right, you're good.
Right.
I think there's some validity into telling stories about your ancestors. I think that's something that culturally we don't always tend to do here.
Yeah.
And you can miss out on a lot of information and on a lot of
History.
just great characters in your family that you don't know about. And, there's a story about one of my ancestors, but I just think from a biblical perspective, that's the whole Old Testament. It's stories about your ancestors and your heritage and what that means. And so I think that's a huge good thing that this is talking about. It's not maybe putting it in the best light, but I know I've got pictures of family that I have no idea who they are because my aunt isn't here anymore to tell me this is this person and this is that person. Yeah. And so to lose that, it's a really sad thing. And so I think that's a real good thing that's brought out in the story that, it's nice to know your family, even if some of them are crazy people, that then you can say, that's why.
That's why we don't do this.
Crazy don't go too far. But, and I think even like with your own family, I don't know what you know about them or how far
crazy
back.
People.
A couple of them sitting in this room.
But that's really important. It's important to know your heritage. And as a Christian, that's the whole Bible. Those are all people that belong to you and their promises are yours because you're connected to them. And so that's huge.
Yeah. There's a sense in which you can say the whole Bible is just retelling the family history. Yeah.
And if you don't tell it, you forget it. And, isn't that in Deuteronomy? Tell these to your children and make sure they know these things and make sure you pass this stuff on to them.
Well, it's like the parallel with knowing your family, knowing the Bible and stuff like that and all of that literature. That if you don't know what your family is, then you're an isolated piece and it's easy to get you pushed around into whatever. But if you have that structure and that history to fall back on, then this is where I belong. This is what the people before me have said. And this is where I need to be.
The other worldview piece or thematic piece that I thought was interesting was the tension that was there in Miguel's life between feeling a responsibility to kind of keep up the family traditions and be faithful to his elders and those who had gone before. And that's on one hand. And on the other hand, he had clear desires and dreams. And in a Christian term, you could say he felt a calling. And now what do you do when those things are when they don't match? Mm-hmm. What do you do when your calling doesn't seem to be what everybody in your family wants you to do?
Yeah. Well, and even beyond that, I think you could even say he probably has a gift for music. Because if all the kind of implied things is right, then he made his guitar out of scraps that he found, his fretboard. I don't know if you guys saw, but his fretboard is made out of nails. Yeah. And then that he's learning his guitar parts and learned how to play by watching videos of other people play. And I've tried to learn how, I'm still trying to learn how to play guitar. And that is hard to do, even when you have that person sitting across from you, showing you and physically moving your fingers into position. This is how you do it. And then strum. And this kid's up here, finger picking and changing chords and melodies and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, this kid's what, 11? Maybe. And he's learning off of a VHS tape. So he's got to play it through, rewind it, play it through. And he's learning in the top of an attic. That's not.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
Has some talent, some skill there. I really think music in itself is an important thing for people. I think that's big in worship. I think that's it's supported by scripture. You know, everybody was doing psalms and singing, and they would do that when they were sad, and they would do that when they were happy, and it's a joyful thing, and it's something that I think ministers to people. Music does that, and it's how hard would it be to live without music? I mean, I just can't.
I do okay.
Can't even imagine. Cannot even imagine.
Well, it was like crazy band. Like it was people walking by singing outside, that they weren't even, it wasn't even just their family. It was that people around them couldn't be performing music. That
they couldn't hear music.
Yeah, that
it's
he
not
couldn't
just
go.
They couldn't be musical.
Yeah. That there was no music, that they were getting after him for being in a place where musicians were.
Yeah.
That he was getting in trouble for shining in musician's shoes. Like, he's doing his job, but it's a musician, so they're bad. We don't do that.
Yeah, that was clearly over the top. Well, I think that's what Mom's saying has been observed quite a bit. Martin Luther says that the Christian who sings prays twice, and he's just talking about the spiritual effect that is there when you sing, and it seems to kind of double whatever your other devotional activities are. And I think a lot of people have noticed that recently. I saw a quote from, who was that? I forget the old dead white guy, but
Family?
no, the quote was something like, "It doesn't matter so much what laws the nations make as long as we are the ones who write the songs." That there's more power in the music than there is in the top-down government instruction and stuff like that. And a lot of people have observed that the church seems to advance more on its music than on its formal statements of theology, which is why the church today is so weak, with the stupid music that passes as
Some
Christian.
of the musical lyrics that are going out. Yeah. But music is amazing.
There's a magical thing going on with music.
There's definitely something going on
You're
with
right.
music.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Not witchcraft, but there's something magic about it. And then, okay, so let's go back to my question.
Right, the original question. Before
have
you're
a
interrupted 2
gift-
times.
Gift versus talent.
No,
No.
that's not it.
Gift versus
Calling versus
advisement.
responsibility, let's say. So your family wants you to be a shoemaker, but you believe God has called you to be a musician. Now, what do you do?
Well, who are you going to obey?
Yeah, it really does come down to that at some point. Now, there's a time when you're Miguel's age, you need to submit to your mother and father and honor what they tell you. You can continue to ask and plead and, until they tell you, stop asking about it. But
if you're someone, you'll just keep on.
right. And so,
Someone.
Reagan stinks eyes.
as long as you're in your parents' house, you need to honor your mother and your father. But then, I think if you're convinced that your calling is really from God, then obey God. And I know that's a tough balancing act, and it's tough. There are situations that have all sorts of different details, and we can't give out pat answers for that. But generally, God wants you to obey your parents. However, there do come times when, if it comes down to a choice between I can either obey God or my parents, then your choice is pretty clear at that point, that you have to follow God.
Yeah.
Jesus anticipates that his gospel will split households sometimes, and that's not fun or good, but it does.
It can be necessary.
It does happen once in a while. Any other worldview issues?
Your person. My one that I saw was forgiveness. That I think that was another big thing in the movie.
Yeah.
That the whole schism in the family is based on a lack of forgiveness. And I mean, I get it. If your husband walks out on you with your little kid.
Never to return.
Never to return. You never hear anything about him, and he's off being famous or whatever.
Or partially famous.
Partially
Trying to be
famous.
famous.
That I could see that being, I could feel some hurt for that, but then to have that kind of fester in not only in yourself, but then encouraging that in other people.
You're right.
And it's not even
multi-generational
lack of forgiveness. And it's multi-people. It's people that they're bringing into the family. Like they're marrying into other families and they're imparting this into each other. You know?
That toxicity, you look around at families and it's there and it's from somewhere farther back. Well, we don't do this. I don't care.
Yeah.
This does not happen. And it's still a relevant thing that there are families that have dysfunction and it's based on one thing that happened way far back, and that's just how things continue. And that's our sin nature, that's going to be how it is, because as fallen people, we can't do anything other than be fallen.
Yeah. And then even too that you see in the Land of the Dead that Imelda and Hector, that they've both been dead for however long.
Yeah.
And he's tried to make things up with her, in their afterlife, and she wants nothing to do with him.
She doesn't want to hear anything.
So it's not that he's been lost and, I didn't know you were here and stuff like that. I'm sure he's tried to explain what happened all these different times, and there just hasn't been any forgiveness there until she finds out that he's been poisoned and stuff like that. And
she's still mad.
And she's still mad at him, But I mean, and then also, I think there's kind of a lack of forgiveness there with Hector and Ernesto, that that they too have been dead for a while, and they've probably interacted with each other. It seems like they've interacted before, but that Hector blames rightly all of his kind of troubles on Ernesto.
Yeah.
In general, what I'm getting at is I think this movie is a big example of what kind of a lack of forgiveness does. Because if it wasn't for this issue, then he wouldn't have had his big conflict about I have to choose my family or my music.
Well, and in that same thing at the very end when Coco, the grandma, she was just a little girl when all this stuff happened. And you would think, well, this wasn't put on her, but it really was. Because she has her little private box that she brings out that has all of these memories and mementos from her father, whom she loved. And she couldn't speak about him anymore, and his picture was torn up, and it wasn't part of the family picture anymore, and she had that saved, and, that she carried around a lot of things herself that was placed on her by her mom. And, I think it's real. That's really what happens to a lot of our kids.
Yeah, the sins of the fathers really do find their way to affect the later generations, for sure. I think the most depressing thing for me was it showed the reality of the afterlife. But again, the afterlife is totally controlled by what people think about you or if they think about you.
Yeah.
That's horrific for me. I don't imagine y'all think about me very much. So,
I don't know if it's any better than Mormonism, where I got to wait for somebody to call my secret name that I don't even know.
That kind of makes me mad anytime I meet someone and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm a Mormon." I'm like, so, my question is, if you don't get married, what happens to you? You don't have any.
Right.
You have no purpose.
You have no purpose. You have no way to get out and get to something better. And that was the thing that depressed me about this movie. In addition to if people remember me or not. But that regardless of if people remember you, you still die again. No one knows what happens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're still waiting on an ultimate death.
Yeah.
And then eternal nothingness. It was really pretty depressing.
Yeah. It wasn't very nice, all that.
It winds up being a very bleak view of the afterlife, I think.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it was so brightly painted.
Right. It looked like a party. It looked like a party.
And it is, as long as somebody remembers.
Yeah, you only have probably a couple hundred years. And then
but then,
if you have that.
The cool thing on that, though, is that as Christians, God is known us from before the foundation of the world. And no way he's going to forget his people. We're written on the palms of his hand.
Right.
And
my picture's on his refrigerator.
That bad, ugly picture where you got your hair stuck up funny.
That's his license. No, really, if you see him, ask him about his license.
My license is good.
I really.
Fantastic.
So Coco probably isn't the best
movie.
Well, it sounds like y'all didn't hate it as much as I did.
I just thought there were some things
I didn't
of worth in it.
Yeah.
No, I did not.
When I'm watching a movie for this, I'm looking for kind of, like, if I was going to sit down and talk to somebody based on if we're going to have a faith-based discussion, what can I use to pull someone back to?
Yeah.
Which
Well,
is,
we watched this movie specifically to podcast about it.
yeah, I know,
And,
but regardless.
yeah. So I hear what you're saying. It's different, really, when you watch a movie thinking, oh, we got a podcast about this.
I know.
What are we going to say?
Like, I wasn't thinking about anything when I watched Black Panther finally, because I was like, it's done.
Just enjoy this.
No, I find myself like still thinking about things, but not in a way that I'm like.
Well,
I'm never
if
really
something,
stressed
if something
about
like
that,
really
but-
overt happens, then I'll be like, that's problematic.
No, I think about it all the time.
Well, that was my thesis, was looking for themes, and
Right.
so.
So you still look.
All right, y'all. I think we're done with Coco.
Coco.
Right.
Time for this movie to fade into nothingness.
But it's so brightly colored. It'll take some time.
All right, y'all go out there and dominionize. Pay attention to what's being preached to you in all different types of media and learn how to preach the right things. Amen. All the people said,
Bye.
No, we're supposed to do the 1, 2, 3.
3, 2, 1.
Oh, yeah.
3, 2, 1. Dominionize. Oh, you didn't do the right.
What was it?
Oh, I thought we were supposed to say whatever.
Yeah, we were just supposed to say whatever came to our mind.
It's dominionize.
Okay.
Oh.
Next time.
That's going to be on our t-shirts. And
3, 2, 1 to Minionize.
3, 2, 1, dominionize.
You know they have that penguin show.
3, 2, 1 penguins.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I remember that barely.
All right. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Worldview Media Podcast. Please visit reconstructionistradio.com to check out the other podcasts in our network and to download our free audiobooks.